Alright, so we are going to finish off this episode with our review of Rebel Moon Part 2 Scargiver, which the whole name kind of sucks, and when I heard the name, I kind of laughed.
You know, everything about it, I think Scargiver is the perfect name for this movie because it is perfectly nothing.
Yeah.
It sounds cool.
It's so dumb.
In concept, it sounds cool, but then you watch it and you're like, this is nothing.
And it's only like 2 or 3 times somebody's like, oh, she's the Scargiver.
Yeah.
And they have to say it with that like dramatic dun dun dun.
I have to say, Zack Snyder, you made a massive mistake having this be 2 movies and not a series. This kind of lore that you're trying to sell us desperately needs like a series for us to get into any of it, because otherwise it means nothing.
I'm glad it's done. Well, I don't even think it's done.
They want to go for 3.
And they left it open for the 3rd at the end.
They want to make a 3rd one. Netflix hasn't signed off, but they want to make a 3rd one.
Okay, so we pick up Atticus Noble, Ed Skrein's character, who's like the admiral, supposedly is dead because Cora kills him at the end. All of the band of good guys go back to the planet that they were originally... What's that planet's name?
It's a moon.
Velt, V-E-L-D-T, which is nuts. So all of the band of heroes go back to Velt, and they're like, hey, the Admiral's dead, but of course in the beginning we get to see he's not dead because they put him in a chrysalis. Mm-hmm. And they made this big deal of the fact that he didn't breathe for a while, so he might have this really bad brain damage.
But he acts the exact same as he always has.
Exact same, and no one brings up anything else about like when he wants to just open fire on the planet and destroy all the grain. The guy's not, the second in command's not like, I don't know, sir, do you sure? He's like, okay.
All right. That's what you want to do. Also,
and no one brings up the brain damage thing again. The whole movie.
Well, not only that, it doesn't make any sense that the rationale that that Skeen gives for doing this makes no fucking sense.
No, and it's so dumb.
The rebels of Rebel Moon go back to the moon of Rebel Moon.
Yeah,
and they announced to all the people there, there's not going to be a war. We killed the admiral. Ship's not coming. Well,
and that announcement lasted 2 minutes.
Maybe that. Because the guy that stayed on the planet, you remember him? That one guy, he's still here. Yeah. Because we're going to get into storytelling in a second.
Spy.
He's still here. You almost have to watch these movies back to back because you can tell they're so clearly tied together that this was a 4-hour movie. But it just is like, how could you watch this as a 4-hour movie? How could you do that? So this private is still here, and he's taking messages from the Empire, I guess, and providing status reports. And he comes and he says, no, Empire's coming in like 2 days. And they finally are like, okay, we got to come up with a plan. So the plan is General Titus, Jaimin Hunsu, who is, I think, the only good part of this movie.
He is, except for... Okay, I gotta bring this up.
You want to talk about grain?
First off, Ed Skrein is as ripped as a human being I've ever seen in my life. That man doesn't look like he has an ounce of body fat on him. When he comes out of the chrysalis... Yeah. And he's standing there, I was like, Jesus Christ. Like, you could almost see the muscle fibers in his arms. When they realize that they're coming in 5 days, Titus's plan is, we need to, it takes usually like a month or 2 to harvest the grain. We got to do it in 3 days. And so they do... It seemed like it was 15 minutes of slow motion grain harvesting and flour producing.
I think it was 15 minutes, something like that. It was close to it.
I was in shock.
Well, so here's the thing. I say that this movie would have a 4-hour runtime if you watched both of them back to back. I want to know what the redux on it is. I know that somebody did one for 300, and if you take out all of the slow motion, just have it run at regular speed, I think it's about 40 minutes. I think it's twice as long because of the slow motion. Because it's only a 90-minute movie to begin with. I think that maybe both of these movies together are 2 hours if you take out all the slow motion.
Because it was so jarringly ridiculous in this movie.
It just got
the amount of slow motion.
Overwhelming at times. Like, I like the artistic ones. There were some artistic moments in Rebel Moon Part 1 where he used slow motion. And, Zack Snyder, when he does slow motion well, it can look really good and be really emotional. That I saw that he wanted that to be the case here, but it just wasn't. It just wasn't.
No, not even close. Because it was kind of like his Justice League cut. It was just too much. Mm-hmm. And it did take away from, like you're saying, there were some moments, like especially during the battle, there were a couple moments that the slow-mo looked cool.
Yeah.
And then, but when you continue it way past those moments, you're like, it just cheapened the great moments because you're like, well, I got another hour of slow motion to watch, so I guess
we're going to keep going
better
with this.
Just suck it up, Buttercup.
No, my thing, like, I love The Magnificent Seven. I love it. It's one of my favorite stories.
It's a great movie.
Whether it's Seven Samurai, whether it's the original Magnificent Seven with Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen, whether it's the 2016 Magnificent Seven, which I think is actually really good with Denzel Washington.
It is, minus Chris Pratt, but I love Denzel.
I thought he was fine in it. I thought that it was interesting watching Chris Pratt play against type, where he plays this drunk gambler. I was like, this is interesting. This is not something I've seen from Chris Pratt. So this is interesting. And it also was I watched it before I got sick of Chris Pratt. So it got in under that wire of like, I don't have that resentment for him in that movie.
See, I think that movie was my starting point of being sick of him. So I think that's why I'm more judgmental on it than you.
But this movie desperately wants to be the Magnificent Seven, like so badly.
Oh, yeah.
Like so badly. And it misses what makes the Magnificent Seven the Magnificent Seven, which is that we meet all of these characters. And some of them we don't get to know really well. Harry and what's the name of Robert Vaughn's character? I can't remember. They're, these characters that kind of come into the plot to be one viewpoint, right? So you have Harry is just out for gold, and then Robert Vaughn is this ex-criminal who's lost his edge. And they still have narratives. You still know what they want. They have a starting point and an ending point. And that movie is only 2 hours. It doesn't have 4 hours to do all this. You have Grit and O'Reilly, who are amazing, Coburn and Bronson, respectively. Mm-hmm. And like, I look at Nemesis, and Nemesis is so clearly supposed to be O'Reilly from Magnificent Seven. This wanderer who's lost his family, never really had a home.
Yep. Mixed with a Jedi.
And now he meets these kids in this village and he immediately bonds with them and then ends up dying saving them. But Nemesis, why is she in this movie? She is taken care of so early on in the festivities. Yeah. I was like, really? That's it? That's the whole thing. And then she's the only one of them that dies, which means that none of this is meaningful in any way.
Well, Gunner also dies.
Oh, well, Gunner was from the planet.
Technically part of them. He's from the planet, but he was like a love interest add-on to the Magnificent Seven.
No, it's true, but like,
because he got his tapestry from the girl.
Oh man, that's another thing. Is that you have these intense farming scenes of them farming all day, and everybody's farming, and it's hard work, and they're farming deep into the night, and they have to bring out the lights, and they're farming, and then they go and they party, and I'm like, every one of you just worked 36 hours at least, and now you're gonna party?
Yeah.
No, not a chance. Not a goddamn chance.
And Cora and Gunner get busy, and it's like, I don't know, man.
I don't know.
Where are you getting this energy? Like, good for you, Gunner, but I'd be dead.
I've worked 15-hour days where I felt like I was going to die at the end of them. So, and I was just walking around a store. I wasn't swinging any equipment. I wasn't gathering stuff. I wasn't walking beyond just like the, block of the store.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, guys. I feel like they'd be pretty tired.
Crazy.
So we go through, and then Titus goes through, and he's like, all of us have tragic backstories. And Cora's like, I don't. And Titus is like, you do. You definitely do. But it's okay, even though all of us are bonding over this moment, for you not to tell us your drastic backstory, because the audience just heard it.
That's the thing that killed me about that, is it's like, wait a second. So you're the third hour into this movie franchise, and now you're going to have the backstory flashbacks of these characters.
Now we're supposed to care about all of these characters after all of this.
Kind of should have happened in the first movie.
That's usually narratively how that happens.
Yeah. Or not at all. Because honestly, I didn't really give a shit.
I found some of them interesting, but like the things I found interesting were the filmic aspects of it. So Tarek's story I didn't find interesting. I found the costuming on Tarek's planet fascinating. I found the look and the production design of that planet so cool. And I was like, okay, this is rad. I would like to spend some time here. But this is a flashback, so bye. I'll see you later. And it
looked like a hippogriff.
Right?
Well, isn't that thing he fought in the first movie?
It was an animal creature or similar to it. Yeah. Again, I just wanted to see more of this. And also his story didn't really make sense, that he left because he was going to be used for evil if he stayed, but he also didn't want to die because that would be the end of the royal line, so he left. All right, I guess that, all right, if you say so.
And he looked like just this like kind of geeky prince, and then he turns into this Conan the Barbarian type character
who never wears a shirt.
Like, I don't get that.
Except when he's a farmer. When he's a farmer, shirt on. When he's a warrior, shirt off.
You don't want to see him sweat, but you want to see him bleed.
But I just never understood why they introduced all these characters. Milius is this interesting character that they do this backstory on. She has this like Furiosa look, and then she disappears for like 40 minutes, and then all of a sudden she springs out of the roof of this one hut, and you're just like, where were you during this entire fight when Nemesis is dying and Titus and Tarek are doing this bridge defense? Where are you in all of this?
Furiosa eye makeup.
And I just didn't understand the approach. I think most of all, the robot Jimmy is the biggest sign of this, of just like the production design looks great. The character looks great. It's voiced by Anthony Hopkins, which is fine. What is he? What is his whole everything? Because he seems like this big deal. He's all over all of the art, and he has all these action figures and all these things. He's not in the plot. He barely has any association with any of the characters. He's a literal deus ex machina who will just show up and be unstoppable at the moment he's needed. And you're just like...
Well, they set him up in this movie to be the main focus of the third one. Like, at the end, when he's like, I'm gonna join your fight.
Well, I thought that was what they were doing at the end of the second one. Because at the end of the second one, they're walking down, and then he stands up out of the grass, and you're like, oh, we're gonna get more information on Jimmy, because he's still here. No.
Yeah.
We will not be doing that.
And I'll be honest, when the movie started and he started speaking, and I was like, oh yeah, Anthony Hopkins is... I totally forgot that he was the voice of this character.
And just like, I just did not understand a lot of the narrative choices made throughout this. Like, we were talking about sins before. The whole sin that she has where she kills this princess, and you have this whole flashback and stuff. And it's just...
And that flashback still sucks. And I gotta say, as much crap as we gave Torben with his bad beard and wig, Belisarius it's up there. Like, it's not as bad, but it is so close. It is shockingly goofy looking.
Oh, it's not good.
No, it's not.
It looks very silly. It looks extremely
super silly. And especially he's supposed to be the adoptive father of Korra, and you're like,
this guy?
The dude looks like younger than her, and he's got this bad beard and a bad wig, and now he's the father.
I still find it so fascinating. Here's a term for all you friends and enemies at home that you can flash at the next party you have. I found it so interesting that they chose to have diegetic music for that scene, for the assassination scene. I
don't get it.
Diegetic music, for anybody who doesn't know, is when the music is in the scene itself. So, like, if it's on the radio and the characters are singing along to it. Or when you have a string quartet playing music while the king of a nation is assassinated.
Yeah.
Strange choice. Just a really strange choice.
The whole after fight overdone acting of Okay, so they're going to make Cora look like she's the one that killed the entire royal family, but everyone in that room is in on it.
Yeah.
And they still act as if they're trying to sell it to somebody.
Yeah, who are they selling it to?
Yo, kill her! It's like, dude, you. Everyone in the room knows that they killed the king. It's like, who are you selling? You selling it to the blindfolded dummies with the freaking instruments?
Like, who is this for? Who is the charade for?
I don't know. It was so overdone too. I was like, Jesus, dude,
what is happening?
The scenery. It was bad.
I think the only thing
was so bad.
More overdone than that was the ending. I do like their plan where they're gonna fake being this damaged ship, and they're gonna fly up and get taken to the medical center. I thought that was very clever. I like that. And then it just gets out of hand, where you have Ed Skeen Noble decides that he has the Scargiver on his ship. And that's more important than like a year's worth of grain that has been the premise for this entire battle in the first place.
Mm-hmm. And the first movie.
Yeah. So he's going to blow it all up. He's just going to blow it all up. And it takes a really long time. When you have a gun that big, it takes a really long time to get the crosshair set.
See, and that's the thing that I'm getting tired of with this film, which I believe they're going to make a third one. I would probably bet money on the fact that it's in the process of being made. I understand they're trying to go for an aesthetic, almost like a steampunk, where you have technology and like the walking gun things at the end, and the battle had all the smoke coming out of them like they were steam engines or something. It's dumb because you have these ships that have this insane vast technology, but then when they want to move a gun to blow something up, they have to turn a little wheel like you would on a battleship in like the early 1900s or something. I'm like, I don't like that because it's not, you're not pulling it off.
I liked it in concept, but I agree in execution. There's just so many cuts back to wheel up.
Dude, so many cutbacks.
Got to change to the other wheel, other wheel.
Okay, so now it's placed, but we have to tilt it.
Tilt.
You
gotta tilt. Wheel.
Other wheel. And now it's tilted.
Cut back. Action. Cut back. Wheel. Turning. Wheel. Taking aim.
Yeah.
Wheel. You're just like, okay. I liked it the first time. I liked it less the second time because now I'm kind of like, tick, guys. How long is this going to take?
Well, like you said, that right there added 10 minutes to the movie's runtime. Yeah. It's like, dude, it's like, we know you're not going to blow up the town, so just get it over with.
Yeah. No, exactly. This is never going to happen. We all know it's never going to happen. So it's just this, they're trying to draw this tension out, but it's like an anti-Hitchcock. Whereas Hitchcock is like, you have all this tension and it's drawn out more and more. You know, Cary Grant on the side of Mount Rushmore, or on the back of that house on top of Mount Rushmore, trying not to be found. And it's just like that tension gets tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. Yeah. That was not the case here.
That was not the case. And kind of going back to something you had said earlier, I did like the concept, like you said, of the damaged ship flying up and the smoke coming out. But you're telling me the ship doesn't know 4 or 5 ships went down, only 2 were left, all the rest got destroyed. No one is sending that information up. Yeah. And so this ship that was stolen a long time ago is coming up with smoke coming out of it, and no one questions it. And they do we're going to put it in autopilot and take it in for you. And we're going to put you in a hangar different from where the main bad guy's going, just so the story can continue. And I'm just like, oh, Jesus Christ.
I like it in concept, but in execution, there's just moments where you're like, because I had that same thought of just like, nobody told them, oh, we're down another scout ship. We're down another landing ship. Okay. Well, we had 5, we've lost 3.
And these people are injured. Let's leave all their facial coverings on until we're in an enclosed space that they can break out. Instead of, hey, let's remove all restrictive airwave things so maybe they can breathe and let's help them.
They were both of them. They were like, oh, their respirators are low and their pulse is weak, and they're doing nothing to make it so they can breathe better. Nothing at all.
It was so obnoxious.
So all of this is to get Cora on the ship so she can go and blow up a thing. I thought I I thought I had taken something because all of a sudden she's putting things in this ship where the engine is, and suddenly these big eyes open and there's a face, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then it's never mentioned again, and you're just like, what the fuck is this?
I was definitely tripping out right along with you, buddy. I was like, I don't know what is going on.
I was like, I don't remember taking anything, but this can't be a thing, can it? Oh, yeah. It's a thing.
Oh, it was a thing.
But only for this one moment. They have this chase where Gunnar has to go back to the ship. Cora is fighting her way to the ship. Noble is trying to find her, and he's tearing the ship apart to find her. And then the engine blows up, and now the ship is falling. And this is important because a lot of things start happening not as quickly as you'd think they would be happening. So Gunnar gets shot. Noble and Cora are fighting. They're fighting as they fall, free fall, in this hangar that's now going sideways as the ship lists and falls out of the sky. And they're just fighting and falling and fighting and falling. And then all of a sudden you see Gunnar, who's bleeding out, just sliding across the floor. And he's like, Cora! And it's like, well, how is he alive?
I laughed my ass off.
How is he alive? He should 100% be dead at this point. Noble is going to kill Cora. Gunnar comes up and stabs him. And then Noble can't die this way, so he still keeps fighting. And then Cora locks him in a door and then chops his head off. So he's like super dead now. And then the ship is still crashing. And they have time to go back to their dropship, get in it, boot it up, and fly out of the falling ship before it crashes into the ground. And I was just like, nah. No.
And that ship was so big, and it was so close to where the village was, the shockwave from that crashing would have killed everybody. Yeah. That would have destroyed everything.
There's no chance.
That was a massive ship in free fall from space.
And from low orbit, even if it's just low orbit, that 100%. And there's so much munitions on this ship. There's so many things to blow up in this giant ship, which is the size of the village itself. And it explodes about 2 miles from the village, and everybody's just like, yeah, we won! And I'm just like, I guess so. I can't even get to the end of this movie and have the Magnificent Seven. We lost, Calvera lost, the only one who won are the farmers.
Yeah.
That's how this story is supposed to end. Everybody loses except for the farmers. The farmers are the only people who win because everybody who came to help them is dead, or morally in a situation where they hate themselves, which may have been predating them helping the farmers, but it definitely wasn't helped in the way that they thought by helping the farmers.
No.
We get none of that.
No, it was ridiculous.
Everybody just has this new home on this farm moon, this harvest moon, if you will. And then we're told, oh, the princess isn't dead. Did you think shooting her would kill her?
Well, let's see here. In that scene, this weird aura of light comes out of her. So honestly, that was not the most shocking thing you could tell me when you said she's still alive. It's like an ethereal spirit came out of her, like she was more than just, and they even said prior to the assassination that she was kind of more than just like a normal princess. And now you're like, all right.
Yeah, and that's how it ends. That's the movie. Is they're like, we're gonna go out and find this princess, and the robot's going to join us.
And they're gonna take down Balisarius, and they're gonna end his rule.
And none of that. I don't know. The Rebel Moon did not. It was not the hit Netflix wanted it to be.
No.
And so I don't know if they're gonna do part 3.
You gotta give them one thing. They spent some money on these movies.
They did.
Like the special effects.
Oh, the special effects are
when
great.
They're going at normal speed are really great.
The special effects are great. The movie looks great. The production design, the costumes, the feel of the movie artistically is great. It's just when you get to the narrative and the dialogue and some of the directorial choices and the pacing. The pacing is a big problem. I should not be able to sum up the plot of this movie in as much time with as much detail as I did in episode of Acolyte. But I can, and I did. And you just heard me do it.
This is the next step closer. Zack Snyder becoming the next Michael Bay. Like every movie he makes, he's closer and closer to Michael Bay. And watching this movie, I got Transformer vibes. where you're like, okay, it looks cool and the fight scenes look cool, but the narrative and the structure of the movie is just such dog shit that it doesn't matter how it looks because it's just not good.
The look is
and that's kind of what this was, because it looked great.
But that's it.
I was blown away by this special effects.
That's all there is. There's just the look. You know what I would want to do with this movie? Have it recut, take all the dialogue out, and set it as like a space opera to music. And it's just like, you put on Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, see how it syncs up. Because I think that would be a better experience. Because honestly, the story is extremely milquetoast. There's almost nothing to it. Then you have this production design that's really cool to look at. It's really cool to look at, which is much more than I can say for The Acolyte.
Oh, yes. Night and day.
And yet, I can't find myself saying that this is dramatically better than The Acolyte. The only thing that makes this better than The Acolyte is that this has the decency to not call itself Star Wars. You can tell it really wants to be Star Wars, but it never calls itself Star Wars. It doesn't try to call itself Star Wars. It's associatable, Rebel Moon, Star Wars. You get kind of the same flair.
Yeah.
But it doesn't call itself Star Wars. It's not Galaxy
Battle.
Battle.
You said, it is such a blatant ripoff of both Star Wars and Dune, because instead of spice, it's grain, and you're like, okay. And both of them have the Galactic Empire that's evil, and none of them have Ed Skrein's haircut, though. The Noble's haircut, that is still the worst thing I've ever seen, and whoever designed that needs to be fired, because that is horrible.
Well, I still love, we just lauded the look of it, but I do love that when he gets out of the cocoon, he has like this big Matrix thing plugged into the back of his head.
Thank you.
And it looks like he has a prosthetic, because it's supposed to look like his head is cut open and this plug is in his head. But as a result, it looks like he has this giant lump on the back of his head.
Yeah.
You're just like, is that going to be there all movie? No, it's not going to be there by the end of the scene.
I'm glad you brought that up, though, because that is a third movie that they totally ripped off. Because when I saw that, I was like, Jesus, that is a Matrix head jack thing that they had. Nope, it's the way he healed himself in his chrysalis.
Yeah, what is happening?
It's so dumb. All right, folks. Well, I would say, should we grade this as an individual or look at them as one movie, because they really are technically a movie?
For the first one, my grade was I for incomplete.
Yeah.
And so I didn't feel like I could grade it properly without seeing part two. Now, having seen part two, I kind of have to grade them together. And it's like a C-. They're not the worst thing you've ever seen, but you can do far better with your time than watching these movies.
No, I agree. And I was gonna say C or C-, because once again, we still can't technically, because it was an open-ended story still. Like, it still should really have, as much as we don't want a part 3, it's probably going to get a part 3. I don't know what kind of deal Netflix has going on with Zack Snyder, and I am curious. This movie, I looked it up, the production budget, they said it was around $160 million. So, in the scheme of things, that's not crazy nowadays for a movie like this, especially the way Netflix is doing them. It maybe made enough in viewership to warrant it. But I'll probably be the same as you at a C-, just because, once again, it's good to look at, but it just had absolutely nothing underneath its bones.
Good to look at, not as much fun to watch.
No.
And that's not great. It's not great. The fact that I'm thinking more of stills of each scene than I am of one particular action beat that was good.
But like you said, I think the thing that saved is I watched it after The Acolyte.
Yeah.
So it's going to make anything look better.
I watched this instead of The Acolyte last night. And I was just, because I just couldn't. I just couldn't with The Acolyte. I was just like, I can't do this, man. Everything about this is bad. You found a way to put nepotism in Star Wars. We haven't even gotten to that part of the story yet.
No, I don't even want to talk about that.
No, I mean, that's going to be next week.
Ladies and gentlemen, That is going to be next week. Oh, we got a big end to the Acolyte next week, which I can't wait for. So, ladies and gentlemen, we really hope you enjoyed it. That was episode 146 of NerdPod Generation. So, once again, if this is your first time listening to us, please go to nerdpodgen.com and make sure to like and subscribe both our podcast and our YouTube channel, because there's a lot of content here, folks, and a lot of great stuff to listen to. Make sure to come back next week. We're going to talk the final episode of The Acolyte. We were going to do Crisis and Infinite Earths 2.
Yeah.
So that's on our docket unless something changes between now and next week. And then the week after is going to be the big Deadpool Wolverine, so make sure you tie in for that. So, Al, who does our music and our art?
Our music is by Brendan Williams and James Connolly. Our art is by Kortney Howell. I am Alfred Judson.
And I'm Steve Taylor.
And until next week, friends and enemies, there will be more DC animation sensation.
Yes.
More quote-unquote Star Wars. Thank the gods. We will be done with it after next week. It will just be a bad memory instead of something horrible on the horizon.
Thank you for that.
Until then, have a great week, friends and enemies.
Bye.